I went all in on SMMA at 16 to prove it's not luck. I literally cut off my whole social life, everything else, and made this my focal point since me being 16 years old. And I want to break down the point I'm at now, how I got there, and the 3 pillars that have got me from where I am to where I am now, and that are also going to get me to 7 figures a year. So let's dive in. Now, before I go through these 3 main points and break down every single step of the process and what they look like for me, I want you to understand these things just so we're 100% on the same page, so you don't waste your time on this video. This was the hardest thing I've done in my entire life, without a doubt, 100%. It's taken months and months of 18-hour work days, feeling burnt out and quite literally mentally incapable of working anymore. And some days, I say some days, I would say 50% of the time I feel like giving up and going and doing something else. 50% of the time. But I just remind myself that it's at those points of friction where other people drop off, so I just need to keep playing the game and I'm automatically, by default, going to win. I want you to also know that things go wrong all the time. Like, I could be happy, I could be closing deals, things could be going great, and within minutes, things can go sideways, problems can arise, and I'm stressed to the core, and turns out I've got to stay up all night and try and fix a problem that came up. And the final thing is, nobody tells you these things because they don't want you to know, but it's hard. Like, I had to cut out 99% of my friends, family events, my social life. This has been my life since that point, and I want you to know that, and that's what it takes to build a successful business in any endeavor, whether it's SMMA, whether it's a brick and mortar, whether it's another online based business. It's going to be extremely hard, but it all boils down to how bad do you want it. Are you willing to work hard now, to sacrifice your social life now in order to reap the rewards and reap the fruits of your labor later, to provide for your family, to have an amazing life? And I know for me, that is priceless. So I'm willing to go through any point of pain in order to get to that point. But anyway, let's dive into what I figured out going all in on SMMA at 16 years old. Now, the first pillar that you need to focus on, disregarding these 2, is setting appointments. You shouldn't care about sales, you shouldn't care about firing yourself until you can dial in actually getting people interested and getting people on a Zoom call with you. The first thing I ever did was Instagram and Facebook DM outreach. So let me run you through my scripts that I used throughout that process. Now, the first thing I did is I set myself a goal. So all I said to myself was, I'm going to do 50 DMs a day to 50 different prospects. And that was something that I could check off and build that undeniable stack of proof that I can be consistent and build a business. Now, here's the exact framework that I used. So before messaging the prospect, I do the following. I'll follow them on Instagram, I'll like 2 to 3 of their posts, and I'm going to comment something engaging on their most recent post in order to get them to know who I am, follow me back, and see my DM. And you can see here, this is an example of a couple of the comments that I would leave. Hi, can you check your DMs, please? I have a question about your treatments, if that's okay. Check your inbox when possible, please. I've got a question about this treatment. From that point, I'm going to then send a conversational opener. And I also want you to expect to send like 500 DMs and only get like 1 or 2 book calls. This is like the coldest form of outreach, but it's all you've got because you have no cash flow to reinvest into paid ads. You have no leverage because you have no testimonials. This is what I did, and it worked the best for me. And here's the conversational opener that I sent. I used to be a believer in the bait and switch method. I genuinely believe that now being 100% upfront and honest is the best way to do this. So I said, hi, we're looking for 3 power partners to build out their own in-house patients on demand system, 20 new patients guaranteed every month. If you can handle that amount, lol. Feel free to say no if this isn't aligned, but if you're curious, would you be open to a quick phone call to see if we can help you out? From that point, we're just waiting for their response, and then in terms of follow-up paths, it's pretty straightforward. You're sending gifts, you're sending them funny jokes, you just want to get them to respond, and all that is I would follow from day 2, 3, 4, and 5 to day 14 to day 30. That is when I'd send follow-up messages, and I just set reminders on that lead on a manual spreadsheet. So after they're interested, pretty straightforward. You just go ahead and get them booked in for an introductory or a demo call with you. If you have no calls on the calendar, get them booked in for an in-depth Zoom call, put together a pitch deck, show them what you do, and just offer them a free trial. So you're going to say something like this. Sounds good. Will probably make more sense for us to pen down a time to see if we can even help you out. You can pick a time that best suits you here. And what I would do is if somebody said they wasn't interested, I would leverage our Facebook group to nurture them long term. So I say, no worries, I guess you can join our Facebook group anyway. It's completely free and full of value for clinic owners like yourself. I'll leave the link below. So then that way, even if they don't book a call now, I can plant that seed and nurture them long term with our organic content. So to be clear, with Instagram and Facebook outreach, this is probably the best way to get started, low barrier to entry. And then from that point, you want to scale it up. So what I did is I started hiring people on Upwork, and there's so many videos on YouTube on this, I'm not going to dive in. I started hiring people on a commission basis, and some of them were on like $3 an hour. So I had some VAs from the Philippines go through an SOP much like this one that showed them what their goal was daily. They've got the account logins, they've got the DM'd book call examples, they've got a tracking sheet to keep track of leads that they got from scraping them from Phantom Buster and Instagram. My very first video shows you how to do this if you want to take a look. And then they've got the main SOP and the script on this document too. Now this all comes from doing the outreach yourself. I'm a huge believer in don't delegate it if you're not a master at it already. I became super good at DM outreach and I had a dialed in system. So then what I did is I hired 5 to 6 different VAs on Upwork. I created 15 Instagram accounts. They had 5 each, and I just had a couple of posts here and there, and all I did was botted some likes and comments on those accounts. What that allowed us to do is I had these accounts that looked super real. I'd be DMing 250 people a day per VA. So at one point I had 5 different VAs sending 250 DMs daily, which meant I was sending over 1,000 DMs a day to different med spa owners, booking anywhere from around 1 to 5 calls a day. So that is how I initially got started, and this just scaled up from the point of me manually doing it myself. And you've got to go through that point. And then the other different ways that I set appointments was Instantly AI. There's a bunch of videos on that. What I did is I scraped a huge list of med spa owners' emails from Phantom Buster, and you can also pay other people on Upwork to do it. I put them in instantly. So with email outreach, this was a huge volume game, because what I was doing was sending about 1,000 emails a day, the same, and I was booking anywhere from 1 to 3 calls a day. This one was super slow for me, and I know it's a lot better for others, but you can look at a bunch of videos on how to do that. Third thing, which was actually the first thing I did, was cold calling. This was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, but it was the best thing I ever did, because it helped me get out of my comfort zone. It helped me realize that cold calling is not hard at all, and just communicating in front of a screen or communicating over the phone with somebody is not as bad as it seems when you just put the reps in. I had a goal to do anywhere from 50 to 150 cold calls a day, and I would hold myself accountable in Max Pearson's group and book anywhere from around 2 to 7 booked appointments every single day. Keep in mind, with all of these methods, show rate was super low because the form of outreach was super cold too. And then as we started scaling up, I started building leverage and delegating out these tasks. That's when I started dialing in my organic content. So when I was DMing people, I had that leverage and that credibility to go, hey, I post content, I'm a social media celebrity within this industry, and at the same time, here's a bunch of testimonials with other clinic owners that I've worked with. I wanted to build that credibility, I wanted to build that trust, and I'm still continuously doing this as of now. And then the final thing, which has been the most successful for me, is running paid ads for my agency. I'll be honest, I blew thousands of dollars before I cracked the code on paid ads, but it was 1,000,000% worth it. I believe I spent $2,000 or $3,000 and it just got poured down the drain and I didn't sign a single client. But from that point, I learned how B2B ads worked, I dialed them in, and now my cost per acquisition is between anywhere from $600 to $900. Okay, moving on to the second pillar here, which is closing appointments, and it's pretty straightforward. You take sales calls, you put in the reps, and you embrace the uncomfortability. The more you learn about your niche, I believe it's directly proportional with the amount of sales you will make. Because you very quickly realize that when you don't know a lot about the treatments your clinics offer, the pain points they have, they're very skeptical, and that's where the point where they ask, do you have referrals, do you have testimonials, let me think about it. Now from this point, when I get on calls now, fast forward down the line, if anything, I know more than that clinic owner about the treatments that they offer. And that allows me to have that leverage where they just instantly trust me. If one, they believe and know that I'm talking about things that are true, and two, they understand that I know their pain points better than they do. And I kind of make them realize the problems that they had without them even realizing it. But again, it takes time to get to that point. I can't count on my hands the amount of sales calls I've had where I'll sit down in my chair and just feel super embarrassed at how bad it went. The amount of times where people just left the calls on me because I just didn't know what I was talking about. But it all comes through putting in the reps and noticing the patterns. Go over your sales calls, role play with an accountability partner, and just put in the reps, and the more leads you can get on the phone, the better. And the most important thing here was just paying coaches to review my calls and give me feedback. This was huge. I had a lot of people in Agency Lab do this. They'd review my calls, they'd give me things that I needed to improve on, and I'd just work on those things, and I'd obsess over the small details to make sure that my sales calls were dialed in. And the third thing, which is what I'm currently doing as of now, which is firing myself. Now, I don't want to immerse myself fully outside of the business so I can lay on the beach. I love this stuff. I love the feeling of growth, and I love seeing my clients win. But I'm in the process of hiring talent and bringing A players onto the team. I'm delegating tasks to VAs under my cost per hour, such as outreach, such as intro calls, such as taking client check-in calls, editing and posting my organic content. All of these things are under my cost per hour in terms of tasks that I need to do. And the third thing is just automating systems. And you know what? Everything from setting appointments to firing yourself, it all comes from closing appointments. And you know what? Everything from that point of closing appointments is purely just a sales game. Like, the more money you can take up front by selling paid in fulls, and the only reason I've allowed myself to start hiring A players and talent is from taking paid in fulls. So I take a 3-month commitment or a 4-month commitment, or sometimes even a 6-month commitment fully up front, so I can leverage that cash flow to reinvest in the business. And there's a very common saying in Agency Lab, and it's never turn the sales machine off. The amount of times I've got this close to doing it and I just remember that saying, and I never do, because it's so important. Because if you have sales, you have money, and money brings leverage, so you can hire and delegate out those tasks that you need to fix. For example, I had a really bad problem with client success recently because I haven't had time to jump on those calls and check in with clients. So all I did was continuously sign more clients, and with that cash that I made, I reinvested in an A-player, highly talented, highly experienced client success manager that's going to be learning the ins and outs of my processes and systems and taking on that role to delegate that side of the business off me completely. This is a little bit of a long-winded video. I hope you found some value in it, and if you have any questions, please let me know.